Hello and welcome to the BloodStream podcast, a show serving the greater bleeding disorders community. Brought to you by Believe Limited and BloodStream Media and made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I am your patient advocate and host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your healthcare advocate, nonprofit nerd, and your other host, Amy Board, reminding you to please speak with the treatment professional before making any treatment decisions.
On today's show, Nicole Angeles. We have an interview with her. She's a mom with von Willebrand disease who has a follow-up story about her second pregnancy, which went much differently than her first. More on that later. And the latest I'm Fine segment on wearing multiple hats, the stress of shifting roles with Cherri Clark. We have got all that and more on today's episode. Welcome to BloodStream.
Listeners, thank you for joining us today. And if you like what you hear, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on all the social media and bloodstreammedia.com. It's all the things.
You can, and we would recommend you do so. I also want to remind you, dear listeners, that the BloodStream podcast is made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. Yes, that's right, Takeda. Takeda's got this website, bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and commitment to the bleeding disorders community. Takeda believes in a world free of bleeds, and they are dedicated more than ever in their efforts to offer a wide range of programs and support to help patients throughout their treatment journey, wherever on that journey they may be. You can learn more by simply visiting bleedingdisorders.com. One more time, that's bleedingdisorders.com. And for their founding and ongoing support of the BloodStream podcast, I would just like to say thanks, Takeda.
Thanks, Takeda. Hi, PGL.
Amy Board, I like your Ferrari sweatshirt.
I know. Living large and in charge in my Ferrari sweatshirt today.
Is this the way that you communicate to your husband the kind of Christmas gifts you're expecting?
Oh my gosh. This was actually a present. I think it was a birthday present from him. I just thought they're cool. Ferrari isn't really even my team, or it's not like I want a Ferrari. It's just the coolest sweatshirt. It's just cool.
It is a cool sweatshirt. It is a cool sweatshirt. I'll give you that. I don't have
Yes.
My wardrobe is not nearly as conversation worthy today.
Oh, I was about to say, I was like, today. Sometimes you wear something. You wear some basketball something, or you wear something. It's conversation
I do
starting.
wear something. I generally wear something.
I want to ask you two things. There's two things before we get into the meat of the episode. One, we've had several podcasts here recently that have been with the Blood Brotherhood, and I wanted to ask you, how has that been? Just for you personally. I know listeners, if you haven't listened to them, I believe like the last episode was one. I think we're going to get another one perhaps. But anyway, what was that like for you facilitating that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, to be honest, it's something I've been thinking about for years, wanting to do something between the BloodStream podcast and the Blood Brotherhood, and to bring those stories, out from the closed doors and into the light a little bit for those who are willing to share in that capacity. And I really didn't know how deep people would be willing to go, knowing that it was going to be recorded and disseminated. I didn't know if we would see as much of a representation across the community, across generations and backgrounds and locations and all the things, but we did. We got together. I think there were 18 of us, and people really went for it. I mean, credit to Mark P., the Hemophilia Blood Brother Coordinator. That's not his title, but that is one of the things he does over at HFA. I forget your title offhand. Sorry, Mark. But he was a great co-host and co-facilitator and partner in this on the HFA side. And he had developed this list of priority topics, and people were ready to speak to them. Yeah. So it was gratifying. I'm glad that we were able to use this platform to bring that together. People in the moment spoke really positively about the opportunity we were on together for 3 hours, I think, all told. It was an exceptional conversation, and it led to, these 3 cool, unique episodes. And I don't think this will be the end of things with the Blood Brotherhood. I have a feeling we'll try to look for opportunities next year to collaborate, depending on what exactly that program does in 2026, which Mark talks about a little bit on those episodes. But 3 great episodes. I hope people are enjoying them. And if you are attending an HFA symposium, or if you have an HFA member organization in your area, sometimes what we colloquially refer to as chapters encompasses both NBDF chapters and HFA member organizations. Some entities are both. But they host Blood Brotherhood chats where you can get together with, local guys, men affected by bleeding disorders, to speak openly about your lived experience. They're helpful. I mean, I hesitate to use the word, but they are therapeutic. They just are. They're not facilitated by a trained therapist or anything like that. But what people are bringing to the table, it's truly a therapeutic. From my lens, it's truly a therapeutic experience. So, thanks for the opportunity to reflect on that a little bit, Amy.
No, that's cool. No, that's great. I think it's wonderful. And the thing that I love about it is that we've all, we know that this is a very tight community. They get a space at least once a year at HFA to really be together, nationally, globally, if you will, to really be together. And this is such a window into that world and that conversation. So I just think it's really neat, and hats off to you and the Blood Brothers who participated in that. And then I can't go on without mentioning, a couple weeks ago you had a big birthday. Happy 40th, my dude. Happy 40th.
Thank you, pal. Thank you very much. I've officially entered the decade of 40s. It feels good to be here. I feel like I've caught up to the look my hair has been pushing for some time now.
Yes, so now you can really sink into it and be like, this is my vibe.
This is who I am and where I'm at in my life. But no, thank you. It was a great 40th. Natalie organized a lovely little set of gifts and moments, and we had a great holiday weekend. It was on the heels of Thanksgiving, so it was a great holiday weekend with her and little Vivian. So I'm coming into December feeling grateful, and looking forward to seeing what 40 has in store and the 40s have in store.
So great. Happy birthday.
It's wild though. I gotta say, just, you asked me about Blood Brotherhood. As a kid, 40 wasn't something that I necessarily thought was in sights. I mean, I did not. I remember when I was 12 and had a synovectomy shout out Denver. I was the second oldest patient in this cohort of people getting nuclear isotopic synovectomies out of the Hemophilia Treatment Center in Colorado. I think there were 8 of us. The only person older than me was 36, and he was so his joints and his mobility was so limited, he could only move with the assistance of his 2 60-something-year-old parents. He was morbidly obese. He really seemed to be struggling. And I remember thinking, like, that was the first time I'd ever seen somebody who wasn't a kid with hemophilia. I'd only met kids at camp with hemophilia. I never saw a 30-something-year-old with hemophilia. And this was 1998. So we had recombinant product. We were in the prophylaxis era, but this was 1998 and this was a 36-year-old. So this was somebody who had lived through, the contamination crisis, who had lived through a time before there was factor treatment, and his body certainly showed it. So as a kid, I didn't have examples of hemophilia in older age, except this guy, and then being introduced to the idea that we didn't know about heart disease and aging with hemophilia because we hadn't had a population live long enough. Yeah. So, I have slowed down a little bit these last couple of weeks to process, especially on the heels of that Blood Brotherhood talk and talking about challenges across the lifespan. Yeah. The 40s was not something I always thought was going to be for me. I wasn't looking at that guy and saying, yeah, that's what I want at 36. Like, I can't wait to be 36. Like, no way, Jose. So to actually be here, to be healthy, to be on 2 corrected ankles, that's what I'm going to call them, my corrected ankles. I feel very fortunate, and I have to kind of, I don't know, to some degree, pay honor to the kid who just never thought this was going to be my reality.
Unbelievable. It was incredible. You've never shared that before. That's incredible.
Once in a while, I have some original contributions to this podcast, Amy.
No, I have nothing to add except go Denver, I guess.
Should we talk about the I'm Fine segment? I will tell you, my daughter's become a huge Denver Nuggets fan. It's her favorite basketball team. She said, and I quote, I miss the Denver Nuggets. She said this unprompted when nothing to do with basketball was happening.
Vivian, I know it's because we have like the rainbow logo. I know that that's probably what it is, but God bless her. She knows. She's not an idiot. She was born and raised a basketball fan. She knows.
She
Ugh,
knows. She knows. And Nikola
what a
Jokic
vibe.
plays for the Denver Nuggets, so she's not going to be a basketball fan who doesn't not know about it. But anyway, we should move on to I'm Fine. That's what we're here to talk about. Amy, what's going on during this I'm Fine segment?
Oh, it's great. We sit down with the wonderful Cherri Clark, who shares what it's really like to juggle being a nurse, a patient, a board member, and a caregiver, all the while managing her own health. She talks openly about the pressure of being I'm Fine. I actually know Cherri in joint communities, actually. I didn't get to speak to her about this, but she has a bleeding disorder, and she also has polycythemia vera. So I've been able to
Oh, wild.
talk to her. It's crazy, but she's wonderful. And I really think she kind of talks about what it's like to be pushed past her limits and also learning to really set boundaries as well with, that actually makes things stick. So it's that push and pull that we all feel, but when we are managing a rare chronic disease on a daily basis, even if it's in the back of our brain, there's always that push pull. So anyway, we're excited. It's a great conversation about the many hats that we all wear and what it takes to show up without, losing yourself in the process.
Well, fantastic. We'll get to that in just a moment after I remind you that I'm Fine aims to challenge entrenched ideas around chronic resiliency and satisfaction with suboptimal outcomes by inspiring people with hemophilia to seek education and truly consider the possibilities. Sanofi seeks to expand the idea of what's possible for the hemophilia community. Take a deeper look at the science behind hemophilia and an important connection between factor activity levels and potential activities at levelsmatter.com. And now, on to I'm Fine. Welcome back to I'm Fine. Today we're talking about something so many of us live every day, but rarely admit out loud: the pressure of juggling multiple roles. Whether it's work, family, community, or health, sometimes we just put on this shield and say, I'm fine. But what's really going on beneath that?
It's easier to say, oh, I'm fine. How are you? Let's take care of you, because that's naturally the path that I go down.
This is all I've ever known. Is that even
possible for me?
I don't want to miss anything.
I don't need that. I don't want to acknowledge my pain.
I don't want to get poked with needles.
I don't want that.
There's nothing wrong.
I'm fine.
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 We're sitting down today with Cherri Clark, board member, nurse, caregiver, patient, the list goes on. She's worn multiple hats her whole life and has learned how to flow through the peaks and rest in the valleys. But it wasn't always easy. She has leaned on the I'm Fine shield many times and is now doing the work to break it down.
But if you're really honest, you're not really always fine. I think that once you start admitting, oh, hey, today I feel really angry, or I feel really afraid, or to me personally, I feel like it's kind of admitting a weakness.
Can you feel that tension? Cherri knows the instinct. We tell people we're fine even when we're not. It's a shield, a way to keep going, but it can hide the real strain underneath.
I'm so used to helping other people that it's really difficult for me. As a nurse, I'm so used to being the caregiver. So as a patient and as, a board member and a community member, and it's like the total opposite spectrum. So I'm the one that's receiving the help as the patient instead of being the one that's giving the care. So that's really puts me in a difficult situation because it's hard for me. I'm a natural-born caregiver.
And that flip is tricky. For someone whose identity is helping others, asking for care feels unnatural. But it's also where we start to see the real pressure of wearing so many hats.
Oftentimes I don't say no. I usually, I want to say yes, like I really feel uncomfortable saying no. So I'm usually, yes, I can do that, and I kind of make time, and then eventually that builds up and I get a little bit overwhelmed, and then I just, I'm like, this is my busy time, or I'm really busy right now, or I've got a lot going on is usually how I kind of remove myself from doing a lot more than I know that I'm really capable of doing at the time. How I've overextended myself. I have a hard time saying no to people. I work for 4 different companies, and when they call and say, oh, can you go here, can you go there? I'm like, yes, I can do it. But I kind of just push through because I know that the fall season is going to be over, and then, I can relax afterwards. So, but I'm a yes person. Like, yes, I want to help you, and yes, I can do all of that. And then eventually, like I said, it kind of builds up, and then you have to take a little break for yourself, physically and mentally.
So many of us know this story. Overcommit, push through, then wonder why we're exhausted or frustrated. Cheri's honesty here reminds us that overextension has real costs.
Somebody said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "It really just depends on the day." And that person was probably expecting, "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?" Because that's just our natural reaction. But they kind of laughed and they agreed, and they're like, "Oh, isn't that the truth?" And, "Well, how about today?" So we had like just a natural conversation, about, "Hey, today I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, and I do have to wear the few hats today as a board member, and I'm a community member, so I have to juggle both of those." So yeah.
Depends on the day.
It depends on the day. It really depends on the day.
Cheri's comments here are such a reminder. Sometimes it really does just depend on the day, and being fine isn't always the full story.
It's difficult, but I have to tell myself that not everybody expects you to be there 24/7, and because nobody can do that. So just knowing I have to be realistic. Like, I can say no. Boundaries are good things. They're not bad things, and everybody needs boundaries. So it's difficult for me, but I'm a work in process when we go to that avenue. Yeah. So I'm just learning to say I'm just not available. So, and that to me sounds better than no. In my heart, I was proud of myself, but I felt a little, I don't like disappointing people. So, and the people were probably not disappointed when I had to say, "No, I'm not available." I'm sure they were perfectly fine, but it felt a little, I felt like they would be disappointed, even though in my heart, I knew that that's probably not the case.
And even as she sets those boundaries, Cheri reflects on the story she tells herself, her internal motivation for why she keeps showing up for others.
What story do I tell myself? I think in all of my roles, the story that I tell myself is that I'm doing good by advocating for other people. Like I said, I'm a natural born caregiver, so I tend to not focus on me, but by sharing my story and performing my jobs in my various roles, I feel like I'm helping to advocate for other people.
Setting boundaries is not always easy, especially when saying yes feels like who you are. But as Cheri shows us, it's not just possible, it's empowering. And Cheri's story isn't just about her. It's about how we frame our own narrative and how that can shape the way we show up for the people around us.
The story I tell myself is that the more I communicate my own personal feelings, what I'm dealing with, I'm inevitably going to become more valuable to other people, because I think in turn it's going to allow them to open up and talk about themselves and the issues that they're dealing with, and especially when it comes to mental health, because I just believe that communication is key. And the more open you are, the more open other people are, which opens up the opportunity for even more people to talk about mental health. And I think that especially the young people, like the 20-somethings, are way more open about mental health than my generation was when we were in our 20s. So I think that we've come really a long way in breaking that stigma. A really long way, through communication mainly.
And that's the ripple effect. When we share, others feel safer to do the same. It's how we build stronger, more understanding communities.
I have found a good pace. Like I said, I'm learning to limit the certain things that I do, and I've I know my busier time is coming to an end. My busy time with my work is coming to an end because it's fall. So now I know that I can commit to more things as a board member and as a community member, because those are the things that I enjoy the most. So, and now I have time for those. So I kind of just like focus on the season and what I'm able to do and how much time that I have, while also ensuring that I make time for myself, doing the things that I like to do, even though it still feels a little selfish to me sometimes.
And that's the thing. Sometimes finding balance isn't about doing less, it's about focusing on what truly matters and giving yourself permission to enjoy it. Because joy doesn't have to be grand. It can be something as simple as just taking a few minutes for yourself.
I think it's important, and I'm a big person I like to walk and I absolutely love, this is my favorite thing and it's the most relaxing thing in the world to me, is I love to watch airplanes. Like I love air shows. I love going to the airport observation decks and just sitting and just watching planes. It's the most relaxing thing in the world to me, and I don't do it often enough. I think the most important piece of advice that I could give is to make time for yourself. You've got to make time for yourself. Like the old, put on your oxygen mask first before you can, sort of thing. Because if you're not in good physical and mental health, you're not going to be as beneficial to somebody else.
So whether it's saying no, asking for help, or just taking a few minutes for something that brings you joy, Cheri's story reminds us that it's okay to care for yourself while you're wearing all those hats. You might even say it's necessary. The more honest we are about how we are really feeling, the stronger and more human we become. That's it for this episode of I'm Fine. Thank you for listening, and remember, it is okay to not be okay. It is okay to set boundaries, and it is absolutely okay to take care of yourself. Well, thank you, Cheri, for contributing to the I'm Fine segment. And as a reminder, listeners, Sanofi aims to raise the bar for people living with hemophilia. Reimagine what's possible by visiting rareblood.disorders.com to hear more about Sanofi's dedication to the bleeding disorders community. And speaking of bleeding disorders, speaking of von Willebrand disease, in addition to hemophilia, we have another guest who we've spoken to here in BloodStream Media World in the past, but had an opportunity to speak to again. Amy, what is this interview with Nicole all about?
Yes, Nicole reached out. She shared her story about her first pregnancy on a podcast that we produced long ago. It was called Journeys. We'll do a link so you can actually hear her previous story, because that, if you get nerdy about this and you really kind of want to hear how her patient advocacy really involved in her two pregnancies, it's really great to get kind of like the first grounding pregnancy. But she had a second baby, healthy, glorious baby, but she had a very different experience leading into the second pregnancy that was actually, I think, perpetuated by a health crisis not right before she gave birth, but before she gave birth. I think it was like several months before she gave birth. It's a phenomenal story. She's wonderful. She's very articulate and wonderful, but it really truly is about, especially for women, advocating for yourself in spaces when they don't really believe you that bleeding symptoms actually are a thing. Finding those that do, finding those treatment plans, and she kind of stumbled into that in her second pregnancy. So let's hear my interview with Nicole. Well, Nicole, welcome back to the podcast. I guess the last time that we heard your voice, it was on our Journeys podcast, and now you're here on BloodStream. And I am so excited to hear from you today. It sounds like you've had, I don't know, a growing experience since the last time you've been on the podcast. I wonder, for just like ground setting, you could tell folks about the last time that you were on Journeys and kind of where you were in your life, and that, just kind of the high level of what your pregnancy was like at that time.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, first off, everyone needs to go back and listen to that episode. Okay? That was crazy.
100%. We're going to put in the program notes because it was nuts.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was a 2020 podcast, guys. So it was very hard, a hard time for everyone. And I didn't know I was going to have a 2020 baby, but she's here. We're here, and here we are.
It was kind of the triple three. It was like bleeding disorder, COVID, first pregnant. Like it was a whole big to do. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. But just to kind of like circle back, it was the journey of that pregnancy was surreal. Number one, it was my first pregnancy. Number two, I didn't think I could have children because I had von Willebrand. I know that it sounds crazy, but so much bleeding transpired in my entire life that I didn't have the proper lining to hold the baby. Even when I did find out I was pregnant and I was with the MFM, I did have to take a supplement to keep that lining to get stronger because it was so weak from all the bleeding I had. So it was a blessing in disguise, but it was such a challenging time. on so many aspects, the medical perspectives, my own perspective. And also everyone who knows me knows I'm not from where I live. I'm from New York City. So there was a whole bunch of things I had to do, get a whole brand new team on board, people I never met before, and just a lot of things that transpired that ended up just failing. And a lot of the failure, I'm now after this pregnancy, I see where it transpired from. And those failures, what I did was I turned them around this time, and I made a great outcome happen with this pregnancy because I learned from the failure of the first one. And I don't take the blame. I'm the patient. I don't take the blame, but I do fault myself for not fighting harder. But also it's like it was 2020, so like what could I have done? I think about it constantly, like back and forth. But I think we all learn no matter what. No matter the circumstances, we learn from our past. We learn from what you would say maybe mistakes. I don't know if you would call it mistakes on my end, but I would tell you the mistakes that I found out this time around that happened from the last time is barbaric. So when I tell you, okay, so there was so much I learned. So I'm gonna start, okay, because it's hard to explain. Please. Okay,
and
so
y'all, she's 3 weeks out. She
I'm
gave
3
birth
weeks
3
out.
weeks ago, and she's at home. Before
I'm
we started
home.
recording, she's like, "I'm home. I should be in the hospital."
Yes. Listen, everyone, you guys have to listen to the first podcast to understand what this is like a train, okay? Like you have to follow this because you won't really understand. And I'll do my best to kind of keep it all like coherent. But so my daughter was born July 2020, and then my son was born October 2025. So what I did was before there was not a plan like, hey, I'm gonna get pregnant. There was a conversation like, should we not? Okay, and I was very nervous because of what happened the first time. And just to circle back, the first time I lost an extreme copious amount of blood. I was home and then I wasn't home again. So for a long time. And then I was home. Then I wasn't home again. So that's why we're all saying Nicole is home 3 weeks out. But we ultimately ended up getting pregnant, and I knew I was not going back to that hospital that I gave birth in. So as soon as I gave birth, I went and obtained my medical records from that hospital because I remember how bad it was. And also for context, I had COVID a lot. I had COVID 4 times. COVID while I was pregnant, COVID when I gave birth. There was a whole bunch of things going on, guys. So for a lot of the years, I was under the impression that the failure of the birthing experience from my daughter was due to COVID. Turns out that was bull crap. So, and it's crazy because, we don't have a lot of information about COVID at that time. Right. So I believed it. So, basically, I have brand type 1 severe. And when I gave birth, I had cardiomyopathy. And when I gave birth, I was 28 years old. That's kind of like not normal. Okay. So I had to follow up with a cardiologist. I never did these things before. Mm-hmm. So, when I found out I was pregnant, I was with a regular OBGYN. And with this OBGYN, we went through my medical records, and I was under the impression that I would have MFM again. And that was the case. They said, yeah, you're going to have your consultation. And I said, cool, but you need to go back to cardiology. I was like, okay, sure. I go to cardiology. I bring my medical records. Turns out that physician worked with those physicians on the birthing report and literally said to me verbatim, they did that to you. I will never let that go. How could a hospital who's well known where I live do that to me? And this is like, I don't understand. So I lost a lot of blood on the table. I'm not going to say the number, but it was a lot. And instead of following the birthing plan that was provided by the HTC, they just
in the first pregnancy, in your daughter's pregnancy, you had a plan from the HTC.
Yes, on paper.
On paper.
The physicians thought, actually, I don't know what they thought, but they flooded me with water instead of stopping the bleeding. And to go back to that first recording, I mean, that first episode again, when I woke up, because I had a C-section for context, so I had a C-section twice. All I remember was someone over me saying, "Where's the bleed? Where's the bleed?" And they're like going this like this on my stomach. "Where's the bleed? Where is it?" And then I went to sleep again, and then I ended up in the ICU. That's all I remember. So now reading the birthing report with the cardiologist and finding out that they did that to me, now I'm even more furious. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going back there. There's no way. So I did all my testings and follow-ups. I was clear. Okay, I have no heart issues. So now back to taking care of the baby. So I am handling everything I need to handle. I see the MFM. We have our proper discussions. They read the birthing report. They're saying, you know what? This is not going to happen with us. And I said, cool. So I I have some issues, while you're pregnant. There's some things that transpire. And I had to see a physician in that same practice who wasn't mine, but it was an emergency visit. And turns out she worked for that new office, a new hospital organization that I was with, and the old one that failed my first pregnancy. So we are talking and discussing what happened, what was my complaint at the time. And then I brought up the whole MFM situation because I said, you know what, I think I should just be with MFM. And for context, my first pregnancy, I only saw MFM. I never saw an OBGYN. I was strictly with MFM. So to her, she thought that was bizarre for some reason. And she said, you will always see an OB/GYN. I said, well, I didn't. It was 2020. Maybe that was the issue. I only saw MFM. So then I told her after I gave birth what transpired, the horrendousness of what happened, how much blood loss there was at home and all this kind of stuff. And she said, well, maybe you didn't do your follow-ups. And I was like, what? And I said, I do all my follow-ups. What are you talking about? And she said, well, I bet you if I look at your medical record, I'm going to see a bunch of no-shows. I was like, what? No, I'm starting to get disappointed because this is supposed to be the hospital that I'm entrusting that is going to be better than the first hospital. So I'm like, there's no way she just said this to me. Are you joking? Do you know who I am? Do you see my records? This is insane. So I pretty much left that office and, really gave a serious complaint to the manager, who really didn't seem to really care and kind of sided with the physician at the time, indicating that the physician may have not met what she said, but that was not the case. So either way, I ended up having a really serious bleeding issue. And I called that office, and turns out, guess what? Nicole got transferred to MFM like I was supposed to be. So, I was just a little confused. I don't want to put a full entire blame on them. I think they really wanted to take on the case and really try, but they didn't see and didn't know the seriousness of Von Willebrand. And they just said, hey, you got to go. And I was like, no problem. So I get to MFM, everything is good. They do a whole review on me, and they're like, what's going on? So I had my kidneys were swollen from pregnancy, so I had a lot of pain. So they were trying to maintain that and control that. So that was going on. And then something huge happened. That, listen, guys, and I think a lot of our Von Willebrand patients are going to be shocked. But if you know my story, I started out this way, okay? So because I had COVID, a lot of times I got a lot of damage in my lungs, both sides. And then, and I also have asthma. So my daughter, who is now a toddler, she's 5, she brings home all the bugs. So she brought home rhinovirus, which is a baby virus. I got rhino, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm sitting at the dining table, which is where I'm at now, and we are getting work done downstairs on our bathroom. We're, getting a whole demolishment. And next thing you know, I can't breathe. And I know a lot of people say that and they're talking like this. No, I couldn't breathe. I was like, I really couldn't breathe. And I thought it was the debris down there. So I put on the purifier, but I was not okay. So I called my pulmonologist, who's now every physician that I'm discussing is within this hospital system. So at this point, we have a really good relationship because my asthma is pretty severe. So they called me right away. Like we were on camera video right away. They're like, yeah, we're going to start you on some prednisone and some other stuff, and you're going to keep us posted within an hour or two. Let us know how you're breathing. And I really was struggling to breathe. So they weren't sure if it was COVID again, but they needed clearance from hematology if I could take Paxlovid. So I had to call hematology. As I'm attempting to call hematology, for some reason, they video me as well. And at this point, they're like, we're going to call 911 and send them to your house because you're not breathing. And I was like, So I knew I didn't want to go to that hospital. I was like, there's no way I'm going to the hospital. And so for context, I live in Long Island pretty far. The hospital that I'm working with is NYU, who's well known for being in New York City, but they do have locations in Long Island. So and one of the hospitals they recently transferred into NYU, which is an ER, a whole ER hospital. So I made my way in the car to get to that hospital because if the ambulance would have picked me up from here, they would have took me to the other hospital. So I was like, there's no way. So I drive myself to that hospital, not breathing good. And I get out the car and I'm pretty much like crawling to the front, like not breathing well. And this has never happened to me before, how fast it happened. And I was about 19 weeks pregnant here. So I get there, and unfortunately, I didn't know this hospital did not have OBGYN, so they couldn't even take me, but they did. They put me in the critical care unit, and they were trying to get me to breathe. I really was not breathing. My O2 stat was in the 70s. So I was losing oxygen, and the baby was losing oxygen, which was not good. So they get me stable to the point where, guess what? I had to get transferred to that hospital I didn't want to go to. So I get transferred via ambulance to that hospital. And at that point, again, I'm desatting into the 70s again. Then the baby doctors come in and they scan. They're like, yeah, this baby's losing oxygen. We got to do what we have to do. So I end up getting moved into the ICU, which took 48 hours. Okay. I was in the ER for 48 hours. For someone who was high risk and pregnant and not breathing well, I mean, I don't know what to say. So they had told me at that point that they were going to check the baby every single day. And they were not. Now, here is the most important part of this story and why it connects to Von Willebrand. I said I was having a nosebleed from the minute I got to that second hospital. I said, listen, it's bleeding. I know it's bleeding. I'm swallowing blood. They said, okay, we'll let hematology know. Cool. I get to the ICU floor and pulmonary is doing everything they can to get me to start breathing. And then at some point I become a little bit stable. And I tell them, hey, I'm still swallowing blood. And they said, okay. So they give me a factor while I'm there, which was not my factor, but they gave me the hospital's factor. And I was okay with that. I was like, okay, whatever. Just give me something to see if it can stop. Now I have had these serious nosebleeds since I was diagnosed. I mean, so serious that every nosebleed I have, even to this very day, cannot be stopped without a surgical procedure. I mean, being put under general anesthesia. So I have my ENT's direct cell phone number and he's in the city. This is how serious the Von Willebrand case for my nosebleed is. He couldn't he couldn't take the risk that I would call the office anymore because it would get to him too late. So I texted him and I let him know, hey, I'm in the ICU and I am bleeding. And, this is the duration. This is what I've got. This is what's going on. He said, keep me posted. And I said, okay, cool. Now my breathing is just it's not getting better. We're like kind of like playing this yo-yo game. And my fiance comes in and he asks the doctors, hey, why is she not getting better? What is going on? She's getting better, then she's not getting better. And the only way I could get discharged was if I could do the walking test. Then at some point they stopped coming into my room. and they would just see me from the doorway. And I was like, what is going on? Like, did I get another infection or something? And they didn't say anything. They would just say, hey, when you feel better, you let us know. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to just let you know? You know? So I kept telling them that I felt okay, but I wasn't okay. I kept having these issues with wheezing, and it just, I don't know what was going on. But I was determined to get out of there. And my fiance said, listen, if you are not better, like by tomorrow, you are going to get, I'm going to take you out of this hospital. I said, okay, whatever. So we do my labs, which I don't know why wasn't taken every day. And then I was told that the baby doctors were going to see the baby every day, and that wasn't the case either. So I had to put in a complaint and said, hey, can someone check the baby? You guys brought me in here. You told me the baby was losing oxygen. I need to know what's going on. They finally come up to me and they're like, hey, just so you know, you're 19 weeks pregnant. We don't need to check on the baby every day. And I said, well, yes, you do. I'm very sick. And you told me you were going to check the baby every day. And I'm bleeding. And he said, well, we don't have to because you're 19 weeks. So see, what happens is if something was going to happen, there's nothing we could do about it. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And basically they said if the baby was going to pass away while in my tummy, they couldn't do anything about it. Not at that time period. And I was like, what? I need to get out of here. I was really stressed out at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm still bleeding. They do my blood. So now we're talking from day 1 to day 4. My hemoglobin dropped from, I think it was 11 or 12 to 9. And I told them I was having a nosebleed. So I'm like, I'm bleeding, but I don't think I ever had a hemoglobin drop so much just from a nosebleed. And they kept checking if I was bleeding from anywhere else, and I just wasn't. So we did the walking test, and I passed to a certain degree, and I was just like, I got to get out of here. So I left. I get home. This is Memorial Day weekend, and I sleep to get some rest. I wake up, and there's blood everywhere from my nose. So I call my hematologist, and I'm like, listen, I'm still bleeding, and I just got out the ICU yesterday. You need to come in. So they're around the corner from my house, my local hematologist. So I go. I get out the car, I park in my handicap spot. I am completely out of breath. I'm still not okay. So when I get in, they want to give me oxygen, but they can't give me the nasal cannula because I'm bleeding. So they're like, you need to go back into the hospital. You need to get this fixed. At this point, I was like, nope. I'm texting my ENT. Hey, and he doesn't mind being mentioned. He actually wants to be well known in the community. So Dr. Scott Rickert at NYU in the city, he said, come here now. My team is waiting for you. I said, okay, he wasn't there yet, but he was going to get there. So I said, I'll be there in 2 hours. I came home. I packed everything. I mean, I just kept the oxygen I had on me the entire time. Okay, so I get to the city. I park across the street from the hospital. I'm still not breathing well. I get rushed into critical care. 5 doctors on me, not like 5 attending doctors trying to get me to breathe properly. I end up getting stable somehow, some way, get put in L&D. ENT comes to see me. Guess who needed surgery? Me! And I was 19 weeks pregnant.
Oh my God.
So, turns out I bled into my lung. That whole time, that hospital never checked me, never did re-imaging, was not consistent with the labs, nothing. I bled into my lung because they waited for too long. So, yeah. So I needed surgery. So I had surgery while I was pregnant this time, and I have a Willebrand disease. But guess what? After I had the surgery, my hemoglobin went from 9 to 12. Isn't that crazy? So that was that. And then after that, the team that I was sent to with the MFM at the hospital, NYU, was phenomenal. When I say that particular episode scarred them, I had the team that I had was a medical director, and I had his cell phone number. and his name was Dr. Martin Chavez. He wanted to be mentioned, by the way. He actually said that I made history in that hospital because I set the tone for future physicians. This came out of his mouth. So when we did my C-section this time, everything was by the book. When I say every single I was dotted and T was crossed, he played no games. And from what he said was, while he was in the OR with me, for every drop of blood that started, he zapped it and stopped it right away. So they took what happened from that other hospital, flipped it, and did better. And they were attentive. They understood the seriousness just from a nosebleed that made them see how serious and how fast things can just kind of trickle down. But they were phenomenal. My nurse, her name was Nurse Jen. She was on it, picked up my phone calls every single minute. I mean, Dr. Chavez's team, even when I gave birth, even when I was in the post-op and everything was phenomenal. When I tell you I'm still home, my hemoglobin is still stable.
That's crazy. Now, did they treat you prior to giving birth? Did you treat them? What was your plan?
Yeah, this time we infused. First of all, I got iron for like 2 weeks.
Leading up to
the delivery. Yep. And my infusion was increased and given to me 14 days in advance. And we continued that same regimen till this very day.
And that was not the case in the first pregnancy?
Nope.
Was your HTC, was your hematologist involved in writing the plan for this new hospital?
So I'm just with my hematologist now, not with my HTC anymore. But that was just a personal choice. But my local hematologist did very, very, very well.
Very well, and wrote the plan and worked with this.
Yes, I would say if you're going to do anything, and if you're going to have your second pregnancy and the first one failed as much as mine did, I would say make sure you get your birth report, because I didn't know half the things that did happen to me happened, but I learned a lot from that. And all it took was for me, it was just the blood loss. Like I knew I lost a lot of blood, and I just didn't want that to happen again. I was like, I can't go through that this time with 2 kids, and my daughter has von Willebrand, so I just couldn't risk anything. I wanted to be home when I came home.
Yeah.
So
do you remember in that first pregnancy, do you remember telling them, like, did you want to be treated, or was it just like, I'm just going to trust them, they have the plan? Like, obviously they have the plan.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm not from here, so I had to go all the way back to the city and get everything I needed. But I was like, I want my medicine. And when they were kind of telling me otherwise, or like kind of like conflicting with what the dosage was, or what if I really truly needed it or not, I actually cried. I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm gonna die on the table. That's how I felt, because at that point in time, that's when I lived in the hospital because of the bleeding episodes. So I don't know.
Nicole, it's just incredible. It's just an incredible story. I just thank you so much for coming on. This is top of mind for us, being dismissed in medical, situations, and, taking bleeding seriously. I mean, I am so sorry that it took, a crisis for folks to really wake up to that. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Oh yeah, sure. Of course.
Well, thank you again, Cheri, and thank you, Nicole, for joining and contributing to today's episode. Thanks as well to our presenting sponsor, Takeda, bleedingdisorders.com for more. And thank you to Sanofi for supporting the I'm Fine segment. Remember, levelsmatter.com for more there. We could not produce this show without the support, and we are grateful for it. It's the season of gratitude, after all, Amy Board. We are expressing our gratitude here.
It is. It's an actual season.
It's an actual season. There's fall, there's winter, there's gratitude season. It sneaks in.
Gratitude
spring.
Season sneaks in.
Yeah, it's a thing. Next episode comes out December 26th, the day after Christmas. What can the listeners expect to hear then?
I think we have our third and final installment of the Blood Brothers conversation, so you don't want to miss that, coming out on the best day of the year, the day after Christmas, where everyone's lethargic, so you can just sit on your couch and listen to that. And we also have a gene therapy segment, so it's going to be a killer episode. Don't want to miss it.
Well, and with that, that is all for this episode, the second to last, right? The penultimate episode of the year.
I love a
penultimate. Don't you? Me too. Well, it was a pleasure to do this penultimate with you. Be sure to subscribe to the BloodStream podcast wherever you listen to have the next episode delivered to you the moment it goes live.
And as always, email us at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com to share your story or to inquire about casting opportunities. We have lots of opportunities coming up in 2026. So we want to hear from you. Tell us what you are experiencing, and we'll make sure to get you on the show. You can also find us on social media. Send us a note on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
I am your host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your other host, Amy Board.
And until next time, take self-care of yourself. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.